That's the second biggest monkey head I've ever seen.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
The definition of insanity.
Would you kindly pick up that shortwave radio?
Hello and welcome to episode 47 of PvA Radio. I'm one of your hosts, Luke Croft. Joining me, as always, freelance gaming journalist Cody Mellowkline. Cody, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing well. Still feeling the 24-hour live stream a little bit in my bones, but I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Like, my natural rhythm of sleep is that I get very little of it to begin with. Like, I probably only sleep about 5 hours a night. So
Wow.
I'll go to bed around 1. I wake up around 6. Like, that's how I go. So it didn't take me too long to jump back on to my regular rhythm. Slept a little bit Saturday right after, and then just slept through the night, and I woke up feeling as spry as ever. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, man, look, it's just me and you this week. Larry is on vacation for the 4th of July. So let's take a little bit of time here at the top just to kind of talk about the 24-hour stream, how you felt it went. I want to first of all say thank you to everybody who stopped by, whether you were a viewer, whether you donated, whether you hosted us, whether you dropped a raid, whether you tweeted about it, whatever role you may have played in the stream. If you played any portion of a role, we greatly appreciate it. So we raised almost $1,500 for Able Gamers, which was awesome. We did a bunch of cool giveaways. Shout out to Bethesda for giving us a shout out, and to Able Gamers for amplifying us as well. That was really cool. So I thought it went really well, but how'd you feel about it, Cody?
I think it did. I think it went very well, especially considering this is as PvA, this is our first time doing a 24-hour live stream.
First time, that was our first time ever. We did a 12-hour stream.
Yeah, you guys had done a 12-hour before. So
Yeah.
I think all things considered, it went really well. We had a lot of awesome people stepping in for like basically the 24 hours, which was awesome. We got occasional boosts of energy from some high-level donations and some invasions from other channels helping in. It was a good time. I loved it.
Yeah, and we're already kind of looking ahead and figuring out how else we can, give back to the community, and thinking about other kinds of events that we can do, and really just thinking about the next steps for PvA Radio. I think we're all kind of viewing this as a launch point for us, and so hopefully we'll have some cool announcements to make, and you guys can hop on board and come along with us. So, all right. But for those of you who don't know, this is PvA Radio. We get together each and every week, and we bring the biggest gaming news stories of the week to the table. Then we have an in-depth discussion about it. Consider it your collaborative audio feature article, or your CAFA, if you will. And Cody, what do we want people to do with that?
We want them to spam that emote and then hop into the Discord and just do one big CAFA into the chat. Just do it.
Yep, that's exactly what we want. We do this live every Wednesday over on twitch.tv/PvA Radio at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. If you can't catch us live, you can find us on youtube.com/PvA Radio or on podcast services everywhere. I'm going to ask you guys to do me a favor. Wherever you're listening to us right now, pause for a moment, hit the subscribe button if you're on YouTube, hit the follow button if you're over here on Twitch, and leave us a rating if you're listening to us on a podcast service. Those things go a long, long way for us, and we greatly appreciate it. And wherever you're interacting with us also, feel free to leave us a comment. If you have any feedback on an episode, you can email me directly at luke@playerversusall.com, and I'll try to either get back with you, or if it's something we can talk about on the show, we'll do it there. So all of that would be greatly appreciated. A little bit of housekeeping at the top. Happy 4th to everybody. We're recording this on July 3rd, so hopefully you guys are getting some time off work, maybe even a long weekend perhaps. Stay safe out there and enjoy the holidays. Hopefully you're cooking some delicious food. If you need a good steak recipe, go check the VOD of the 24-hour stream, because I got you. And then, again, thanks to everybody who is involved in the 24-hour stream. If you want to give to Able Gamers, but you weren't able to stop by, The give link is still active. You can go to playerversusall.com/give. It'll redirect you to the Tiltify page, and you can give there. And then also, we're getting back into the swing of our regular rhythm over here on twitch.tv/PvA radio with the PvA Nightly Rundown, which is the gaming news show where I walk you through all the gaming news that you may have missed throughout the day. That's 9 p.m. Eastern time every weekday except for Wednesdays because we're doing this show then. But yeah, listen to that so that you don't look like a freaking idiot at the water cooler the next day when you don't know what's been going on. So yeah, that's all the housekeeping that we've got for you, Cody. Let's get this week started like we get every week started with what have you been playing?
Hopped back into Apex for that season 2 content. I do not purchase the battle pass, at least not so far, so I don't have access to the new character yet. I'm saving up credits I'm almost there. But I was able to play quite a bit today when I got back from work and before I left for work this morning, just to kind of see what's up with the map changes and everything. And I'm actually really feeling the new map changes. I know I was a little bit kind of disappointed we didn't get a new map announced at E3. But just in terms of variety, I think it changes up a bunch of locations significantly. I'd like to see the monsters actually play a much larger role in gameplay, which I thought they would based on the trailer, but so far they're more just an obstacle that you have to navigate around than anything else. I like a bunch of the smaller changes they made to heroes, to even some of the things they've implemented in the game, like extended energy magazines, and they're making the Mozambique and the SMG like somewhat viable options in terms of weapons. I've been using the SMG a lot and like absolutely annihilating people. The base game is just so excellent, and I think at least for me, and I think for the people who play that game semi-regularly or even regularly, I think this is just gives you another chance to dive in. And I think the way the new hero, at least so far, is being used, I think it's really interesting, and I think it opens up a lot of possibilities for synergy in terms of abilities. Like that electric fence is a really, really cool mechanic, and I think for people who like Symmetra or who play defensively just as their nature, I think it's a great option. And in a game that doesn't really have many defensive options.
Yeah, I got a chance to hop in it last night. First of all, that I was like, how is this expansion? This season, 26 gigabytes.
Yeah.
Yo, LaBelle, welcome to the stream. I was like, how's this a 26 gigabyte update? But then
it's massive.
I agree. I think the changes that they made to the map are really cool. It's interesting that we're now in this kind of phase with battle royales that rather than making new maps, which was the PUBG route, we're going to this kind of like living world, which has been the Fortnite route. And I'm with you. I think the Leviathans in the center of the map are cool, which I believe is that's at least what Larry has told me they're called.
Yeah, that's what they're called. Yeah.
We're talking currently about Apex Season 2. The Leviathans in the middle of the map are cool, like as a spectacle, but they don't really play a big role. I think you can get stomped by them if you're dumb enough to stand under their feet. And we actually wanted to stick around and see if what it was like to get stomped by them, and like if you could be recovered or whatever when it happens. I also tried flying into its butthole. Spoiler alert, doesn't have a butthole. That's the kind of content you get over here on twitch.tv/PvA
That's
radio.
That's the sweet gaming content.
I'm a little I don't buy the battle pass either, but last night I just kind of scrolled through the available skins, and I was a little underwhelmed just by the I don't know, like when you get to an event in Overwatch or when you have a new season of Fortnite, like I feel like the cosmetics are really transformative of the characters. Like it doesn't just look like a repainting of the current skin that they have, and I really only felt like there were 2 skins that were even remotely close to the good side, like to being called good in the season pass. Everything else just seemed like a standard, like legendary skin or whatever that you'd be able to unlock. I'd like to see them come up with better themes for these to get people excited about. But I really think the thing that's gonna be the biggest change in season 2 is the ranked mode. And so I'm not going to go through all the dirty details of how the ranked mode works, but essentially you can accrue ranked points for kills and wins, or how well you place in the game. You can earn up to 17 rank points per game. You never downgrade your ranking. So if you make it to gold, you're never going to go back down to silver. And so you'll constantly be in gold unless you progress to the point where you get into platinum or whatever. And I actually think that's really cool, because I think
I do too.
Playing Overwatch and stuff, it's really discouraging if you have a couple bad nights in a row and you're like, man, I either went down a level or I'm really close to going down a level. To not have that, I think is good. The whole, like, if two silvers are playing with a platinum, you're going to get put in a lobby with platinums so that you don't get boosted. I think that's really good as well, because that's been a problem in a lot of other competitive modes with these tiers. But when you think about things that keep people engaged, I think the challenge system is, yes, going to be one of those things, but give people a grind and let them feel like they're progressing to the point where they can be considered really, really good at this game. And I think that's how you get your hooks in people.
Definitely.
So, yeah, but map changes are cool. I'm satisfied with the change, and I think it's going to be enough to pull people back in and to connect them. And last night there was almost 90,000 people watching, which was pretty stellar for them, because I think they were being the third most watched game at the time on Twitch, and when they had slipped down into between the 10th and 15th most watched game. So hopefully it's a little shot in the arm. I can see a lot of streamers coming back to the fold for the rank mode, being able to just say, like, Apex Predator ranked guy streaming this, like, you'll get those people coming back. What else you been playing, Cody?
Just kind of the same old for the past few weeks. Still working through Sekiro. I don't really have much more to say about that game. I haven't reached the point where anything earth-shattering has happened yet again. And then I'm continuing through, again, Red Dead Redemption 2. I just hop into that game for a little bit. I did I don't know how far you got, but I don't know if you got to the mission where you get drunk with Lenny.
Yeah.
Which is, in my opinion, one of the best missions of any Rockstar game. Like, it's just absolutely insane. And it actually reminds me of a scene from Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus. But that's just a lot of fun. I wanted to get to that point, and now I can set aside Red Dead Redemption 2 for a little bit. I have my eyes on some other. I really want to get into Outer Wilds, because I've been hearing nothing but good things about that game. So I might pick that up this weekend. But mostly just the same old, kind of hitting that summer slump where I'm looking for something new.
Yeah, I've been playing more League of Legends, and for those of you new here, like, that's a game I've been trying to get good at, and I feel like it's finally starting to click. Not that I feel like I'm good at it, but, like, I'm understanding what I'm supposed to be doing in different roles with different characters, and I'm finding the best places to go for information to play that game. And so I've been having a lot of fun with that. I'm probably going to stream it quite a bit this week, after the PvA nightly rundown, and just I'm starting to learn how to jungle. And that's been a lot of fun, because I read somewhere it was like jungling is far less mechanically intensive and it's more just about, like, a map awareness and decision making. I'm like, that's what I need. I feel like I have good awareness and my mechanics are not that great. So yeah, I've been playing League, and then this week I guest hosted on the Project Esports podcast, and the co-host was talking about the NBA 2K League, and he was like, "Are you into that?" And I was like, "I'm not, but I don't know why." Like, I love basketball, I love NBA 2K. So the next day at work, I was like, I'm just gonna pull up the last VOD that they have and just kind of keep it on in the background while I'm doing some stuff. Dude, that is esports done right. It is awesome because they're in this arena. They're facing one another as they're playing. It's 5-on-5 basketball.
Yeah.
They're sitting in these, like, dope ass leather lounge chairs. And,
nice.
There's mics all on the floor, and they talk so much shit across the aisle. and it's awesome, dude. Like, I was watching this really close game. So the other cool thing is that 22 of the NBA teams are affiliated with 2K League teams. So I'm a huge Celtics fan. And there's a Celtics affiliated team, so I'm like, I instantly have a team I'm rooting for in this thing. So I watched them play a game against the Cavs, and it was just close the entire time. And after plays, like, the dudes are standing up out of their chairs and talking shit across the aisle to the others, and like the crowd, they don't have a very big crowd, but they don't have an arena that requires a really big crowd for it to be engaging. Gets into it, and I'm like, this is how more esports should be. Like. And look, the toxicity and stuff I think has boiled over a couple times in the 2K League. I think there was a fight a couple months ago in it.
I was going to ask
from the shit talking, but I think like Overwatch League just seems real buddy. There's not too many really great rivalries in that right now. Whereas like I think League has some pretty good rivalries currently, and yeah, there was clearly some good rivalries in the 2K League as well. So I've just discovered that I really love esports. That's all it is. I love esports. I think it's awesome. So, all right, man. Well, let's move into our topics. But before we do that, I do want to thank LaBelle32 for the follow. Certainly appreciated. And that's how we do things over here. If you follow, if you subscribe, or anything like that, we always try to touch on that in between segments as we're going here. So we certainly appreciate the follow, and we appreciate all the engagement we can get in the chat as well. We love to talk and respond to that. So, all right, let's move into our topics. My topic is first, and I want to talk about Dr. Disrespect because there's not been enough conversation about Dr. Disrespect apparently. So. I'm not going to cover the entire story here because I think at this point you probably know the gist of it. So I'm going to give the high-level overview. So Dr. Disrespect, very popular Twitch streamer. He was at E3 and doing an IRL stream. I think one of his very first IRL streams as Dr. Disrespect, or maybe even his very first. And he filmed a segment of his IRL stream in the bathroom, in a public bathroom at the venue, which broke California state law, and within that broke Twitch's terms of service. His account was banned from Twitch, and his E3 credentials were revoked. He was kicked out of E3 as well. The ban lasted only 2 weeks, and in that 2 week span, Dr. Disrespect didn't really say a ton. Like, I think he released a little bit of content on his Twitch. I'm sorry, not on his Twitch, on his Twitter, and like made a couple veiled jokes about what had happened, but never really talked about it directly. And then late last week, his channel got reinstated, and the chat just went like insane. Despite the fact that he wasn't even live. Like, people were just anticipating his return. They were super excited about it. Well, Dr. Disrespect released a statement. His name is Guy Beam, and he released this statement out of character from Dr. Disrespect. And I want to read a portion of his statement here, and it's a little lengthy, but I think it's important for the story. So just bear with me. I'm pulling this from The Verge's write-up. This is from Nick's stat over at The Verge. But this is the first paragraph of Beam's statement. He says, quote, "This was my first IRL stream as the doc, and if it's not obvious by now, one of the things I try to stay true with is authenticity. Real life personas are so difficult to pull off, especially in today's society. Doc is edgy, highly opinionated, cocky, and that certainly adds to the difficulty in staying authentic without offending anyone on a deeper personal level. When we were walking around filming at E3, we clearly weren't thinking about the law's repercussions of filming in the bathroom because honestly, it wasn't in our mind frame at the time. We were sort of all in with the Doc livestream experience and capturing the E3 event through the character. We were so into the E3 IRL journey that we became a little blind in what's okay and what's not okay. We had no ill intention, and I feel that was pretty obvious if you watch the entire thing. We wanted to capture an event, we wanted to capture an adventure. Unfortunately, we took that adventure in the wrong areas, unaware of the legalities surrounding it. On behalf of the Dr. Disrespect brand, I apologize for this," end quote. So that was his statement. And the statement was received by some as hey, he's at least taken some semblance of responsibility for this, and that's good enough. Others accepted it with open arms, while others, including Nathan Grayson from Kotaku, took a bit of an exception to to the statement, saying that it just really seemed like Guy was using the character of Dr. Disrespect to shield him from the reality of the fact that these were his decisions that were made, and that he didn't really take full responsibility of the poor decision making that he had. Well, following that article that was published by Nathan Grayson, Dr. Disrespect's Twitter started becoming active, and he tweeted some pretty toxic things towards Nathan and also to Jason Schreier, another journalist at Kotaku. And so there's a lot of angles here to talk about, right? And I want to make sure we touch on as many of them as we can here. The first thing that I guess I want to get your reactions to, I think we've talked about the bathroom stream in some sort of orbital way, maybe not on this show, but I don't think we necessarily need to hash that out. I think we all agree it's a dick move to record in a public bathroom. Let's talk about the statement that he released here. Kind of, what was your feeling when you first read it? Which of those three camps did you find yourself in terms of how you accepted it?
I fell into the camp of I don't think shielding yourself behind a character is a legitimate excuse for behavior. Like, this has been brought up with other people, and I don't mean to, I'm not going to conflate the two, but I think that the same strategy was used in terms of bypassing responsibility. I think we've talked previously, often in a joking way, about Alex Jones, and how he hides behind his character to bypass responsibility for his actions. I think, like, whatever way you slice it, him deciding to film in that bathroom and take that approach was not Dr. Disrespect's choice. It was the man behind Dr. Disrespect's choice to do that. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there was an article published. I can't remember the outlet. I wish I could remember, but someone published something about how often bad actors like this on Twitch silo these apologies behind, like, on their social media. Like, they kind of tend to hide them because there's a pressure to remain quote unquote authentic to your character, which means Dr. Disrespect would never apologize. The character Dr. Disrespect would never apologize. So he has to kind of make a value judgment and kind of silo this apology off into a special section of his social media that the majority of his fans won't see unless it's republished by a media outlet. So I don't know. I think I kind of take the apology as mostly just kind of him trying to acknowledge what happened without actually taking responsibility for it.
Yeah. I took quite a bit of exception to it as well for a variety of reasons. Also, LaBelle32 in the chat says Logan Paul did the same thing recently. I think that was either today or yesterday. He did a live stream in a public bathroom or published videos where he had filmed in a bathroom or something like that. And it's just, I think that one of the things I take exception with, forgetting just the shielding behind a character and a persona, is this idea that, like, what was wrong about it was that it was illegal, and not the fact that he was invading people's privacy in a place where they should have a reasonable expectation that they're not going to be broadcast on the
ethical
internet
implications
for, thousands of viewers. Like, I took exception to that. I do agree with you that, like, it's this weird line that these creators have to walk when they've created these characters that are so defined by their toxicity, by their bullheadishness, and that people tend to not be able to. I'm sure there are a lot of fans of Dr. Disrespect that don't understand that it's a character.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
That believe that this is just who this guy truly is. Because I'll be honest, I've only watched maybe a combined 15 minutes of Dr. Disrespect content in my life.
You get the idea. But
you get the idea really quickly, and I think he does a good job at what he is attempting to do, right? Like, and he's adopted this persona, and I do think that he is benefiting off of people who don't see it as a persona. Just they see it as this is who this guy is. And so, like you said, apologizing would shatter that that veil, and you have to find a way to really navigate around that in a way that keeps that character intact. And just this idea of talking about Doc as if he is somebody separate from who you are, like, I don't know, it just seemed like to me like he felt like he was a politician who sent a spokesman out to give an apology on the politician's behalf. And it's like, well, it's a little weird when the politician walks out and is like, I would like to apologize on behalf of Luke Croft for the decisions that Luke Croft made. And it's like, wait, you are Luke Croft. And so yeah, it sat wrong with me as well. I was actually surprised with the number of people in the industry who I saw just saying like, well, at least he said something about it. And so
the bar is so low.
Yeah. I guess a lot of people were just expecting, well, it's been 2 weeks. He's been reinstated on Twitch. He's about to come back to an enormous amount of fanfare, which is a topic I want to get to here in just a second. And so if he hasn't said anything by now, he probably isn't going to. And so he kind of subverted expectations by just saying anything. But then he completely like negates everything that he's done in this by going after two pretty reputable and respected reporters in the industry, and Nathan Grayson and Jason Schreier, especially Jason Schreier, which seems to be the one that's getting the most press. Like that's the guy you don't go after. That's the guy that who was the dude from IGN whose name I can't remember, when he was like, oh yeah, when he was like, go out and try to find more things on me. Jason Schreier
reviewer, yeah.
And then he was like, okay, here you go. Here's 6 other reviews where you probably plagiarized some shit. And just everything that he said in this apology, for the little bit that it counted before, I think it all washed away when he went after these two guys at a very personal level with some pretty like unflattering and disrespectful photos of them, and tweeting it out to a bunch of people who don't understand the context and are likely going to dogpile on these two individuals. I don't know. I'm sure you don't have a different reaction to that, but I want to get your thoughts.
It's not wildly diverging. I think I'm just upset because he's playing into a narrative and a divide within gaming between journalists and audiences that already exists. And he's just propagating that and further like creating that divide, which I think is harmful to everybody in the industry. I think audiences should appreciate the writers and the journalists that work in this industry more than they do. I think people just view them as entertainers, and they're not. They're journalists, because I think for so long it was a hobbyist kind of industry. I think he's just further creating those divisions. And you're right, a lot of people will not understand the context of what he's doing. They'll just see Dr. Disrespect, this guy, this character that I love so much, going after these people who I don't know. These people are shit talking, quote unquote shit talking Dr. Disrespect. Let me dogpile on them too. And they won't really understand the broader context in which those conversations are happening. So I think what he's doing is actually kind of dangerous for the industry at large.
Yeah. LaBelle32 says, I'm not surprised by it though. I've heard people that know him in person say him and his brother are naturally horrible people. And I can't speak to how these people are personally. And so I think that's...
But it's in character for Dr. Disrespect.
And I do think to a point, when you have these moments that just continually pile up, you have to believe something about the actor who portrays the character, right? I think it has to speak to something within them personally, that this is like the guy who's in an Xbox Live party chat and he, in a moment, like gets really angry, and so he throws out the N-word and he's like, oh man, I'm sorry. Like, I would never say anything like that. And it's like, well, there's something naturally within you that was when you reached for a word, that's the one that you got to. And to me, like, these tweets were a lashing out in a moment where I think he felt cornered by people who were calling him out, frankly, for his bullshit apology. And the first thing that he reached for, you have to think, is like, well, this just who this guy is to a point, you know?
Yeah, it's someone who was reprimanded for 2 weeks and then came back to an enormous amount of fanfare, who's unfamiliar with the idea of being criticized, clearly. At least criticized by people as high a profile as Nathan and Jason.
Yeah.
Just lashing out at those people because he doesn't really know how to react. I think it was, and we're going to talk about what it means for Twitch at large, that these are the kind of people that define its platform. But I think it seems like it's very in character for what we've seen from him in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, let's start migrating in that direction with the conversation with Twitch. And I think I want to start more specifically with just this situation, these kinds of situations. Twitch has rightfully received some criticism within all of this about their handling of their big stars breaking terms of service. And that they seem to have very, very lenient punishments. They're quick to throw around the word ban, but it's never really as permanent as that word sounds. And that after whatever cool down time they're put on, they get to enter back into the community in full force. And
like
in
detention.
cases, yeah, and in cases like Dr. Disrespects, you know, he's likely going to make his next stream is sometime next week. I'm not going to like hand out specific dates advertising when Dr. Disrespect's going to go live, but he is likely going to make more money in his return stream than he would have made in the 2.5 weeks that he was off the platform, you know? And so, what responsibility do you think that Twitch has to deal with these situations, and what are some practical ways in which you think Twitch could start handling situations like this better? Given that these are people that have become the face of the platform, they roll advertisements before people's streams featuring these people's faces.
Well, that's the part that I think is key, because I don't know if Twitch has any interest in actually punishing these people. I think just as much as Dr. Disrespect's apology was an acknowledgement without actually taking responsibility, I think Twitch banning him for 2 weeks is an acknowledgement that some wrongdoing occurred without actually having any intention of really stepping up to the plate to do anything about it. Because you're right, he is the face of the platform. People like him are the face of the platform. And I mean, you can ask, what does it say about your platform if the people who define it, and if you're making money off of people who are extremely toxic? There are questions to be asked about that, certainly. But at the end of the day, that is what they've sort of kind of rallied behind. They've rallied behind figures like Dr. Disrespect because he pulls in the numbers. What do I think they could do practically? I mean, you have to start, I think you do have to start implementing actual, ban someone for more than 2 weeks. Come on, like that's basically just a vacation for him.
Yeah.
Because he knows he's going to recoup all the money after it when he comes back. I don't know what a ban on Twitch means, to be honest. Not like I don't understand what the concept of it is. I haven't seen them do it justifiably for people who actually deserve it. So I don't know what that looks like on Twitch. Like I guess I'm genuinely asking, what is, in terms of a bannable, an offense worth banning, how long would someone like Dr. Disrespect be banned for that's I think adequate for the crime?
I really don't think there's any amount of time you could necessarily put on it that would be reasonable to where they wouldn't be able to just recoup the cost when they come back. I think you have to get more creative in how these punishments work, because I don't think it makes any sense for Twitch to say like, okay, we're going to ban you just forever in these situations. What he did was absolutely stupid, but it's also the man's livelihood, and you have to at least give people the benefit of the doubt that they're going to be able to change, but you also have to make them feel the decisions that they made, feel punishment for the decisions that they made. And so I've actually given this a lot of thought, right, about what I feel like this would look like. One of the big things I had an issue with is I saw a lot of reports going around about how people who were subscribed to Dr. Disrespect, despite the fact that he was banned, still had their auto-renewed subscriptions go through. And they couldn't even access Dr. Disrespect's channel to cancel the subscription. And so I think a big thing is, so like, you know how gyms make money? Gyms make
Yeah.
money by people who have signed up for gyms and forget that they signed up for gyms and just continue to pay for them in perpetuity. They don't make money off of the people that actually show up. So I think the first thing that you do if somebody gets banned from your platform is you say, hey, all of your subscriptions are zeroed out. And when you come back, people will be able to resub to your channel, but you're not going to get these people who have had dormant subscriptions who may not have even been in your channel in the last 6 months, but continue to resubscribe to you because they just haven't turned off auto renew. You're not going to get that money. And then you're automatically going to hit a big dent. I think you say for the first month, you're not going to be able to receive tips. You're not going to be able to receive any kind of like donations. If we see you trying to circumvent that by sending people to a PayPal of some sort, we're going to just ban you again from the platform. Like, I think you have to roll these people in because what they're doing is they're making an event out of their return. And they're saying like, all right, like Dr. Disrespect is advertising the date that he's going to have his return stream so that because he knows that people will show up. You have to soften that and give it a ramp to being in full return. There are features that are going to be completely and totally turned off for your channel while you recover from this ban that you just experienced. And especially, and I think Twitch should have some of the leeway to say like, look, we have seen very little remorse out of you in this. And so we're gonna make this take some more time. Whereas if somebody were to come out and really meaningfully apologize for the things that they've done and recognize their wrongdoing, then maybe you can soften the punishment that they go through. But there needs to be more than just a, hey, take 2 weeks off and come back renewed, refreshed, and ready to earn a lot more money. Let's see. LaBelle32 says they should remove their partnerships because returning people that will repeat their actions are probably going to be forced to behave to a point. And partners do receive a better revenue split than just typical affiliates. And then I think that it even scales based on your viewership once you become a partner. And so if you return those people back down to another level of revenue share, I think that would definitely be something that you could do. And that's the other thing I don't understand that LaBelle brings up in the chat. He says, and I don't think it's necessarily a jailable offense that what he was doing, but I do think that there are some people that if they had a lot of problems with it could sue. But like, where are the legal repercussions of the fact that this dude broke a California state law?
Well, I'm sure there are legal implications in the California court system. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know what responsibility Twitch had, like what Twitch can do in that case, other than kind of just kind of throw up their hands and say, do what you will with him. That's not really
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm not saying that Twitch has anything to do with the legal side of things. I'm just saying like that's another weird thing that it's like everybody's talking about how this is illegal, and maybe it just takes somebody stepping up and saying like, hey, we're going to go after Dr. Disrespect in like a civil way, like in a civil suit because we were in that bathroom he was filming in or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, like what are the we don't really know what the like what is how much of a finable offense is this? Like what is the actual cost legally speaking? I think it would be great to see someone actually crack down on him legally speaking, because I think it would send a message I mean for this crime, but even just in general, that like internet celebrities and streamers aren't off limits in terms of the law. Like they still are legal. They still have to abide by the laws, and this is absolutely absurd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know what Twitch can do, but I do know this, that Twitch needs to do more than what they're currently doing.
Yes.
And we
That's
don't know
been the
what
case for a while.
Yeah, but like you said, there's no incentive for them to do that because they still get a percentage of every dime that Dr. Disrespect's going to make. And at the end of the day, they're going to be better off because Dr. Disrespect was gone for 2 weeks and is going to have a giant ass return stream where people are giving money left and right.
Yeah, I keep on kind of returning to the idea that Twitch is sort of, I mean, it's always the case in any kind of form of entertainment, especially when it's, I mean, for all intents and purposes, there's a reality TV element to streaming and to kind of the content creators. He's playing a character, but he's doing it in real time. There's sort of a connection to the real world in that regard. I think there's kind of it bleeds, it leads kind of mentality when it comes to Twitch. Like the more outrageous you can be, certainly the more entertaining you can be within that outrageousness, the more people you're going to pull in, just because Sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to bring up. I'm on the Twitch subreddit all the time, and there's always like, there's a lot of cool people that do a lot of cool experimentation around like what builds audiences. And this one guy in particular was like, I streamed the same game for 2 months on 2 different channels, and on one I was like really positive, you know, PMA style, like. Being really encouraging to everybody in my chat, being encouraging to people who I was playing games with, and then the next month he started another channel, played the same exact game, and was an asshole to everybody that came by the chat, was an asshole to everybody he played a game with, and his channel grew like 5 times faster. Like I think he made it to affiliate on the on the one where he was being toxic, and it was a slow roll. And it's like there's clearly a shortcut path to finding an audience. And it's not just Dr. Disrespect. There are plenty of other toxic streamers that are very, very popular and that have benefited off of building communities around either a character of being an asshole or just being an asshole in real life, you know. And I think Twitch has a real identity crisis if they want to be taken seriously as a media outlet, as a new digital space. If they want to be taken seriously, they're going to have to get better faces than the Dr. Disrespects of the world.
Yeah. And I don't know how you do that, to be honest, because it's a cultural thing. People are drawn to these personalities for a very specific reason.
Well, and the same thing applies channel to channel as it does to Twitch. There's a shortcut mode to financial success, and the shortcut mode is, hey, let's roll pre-roll ads on my channel for a big Dr. Disrespect stream, or a big Ninja stream, or a big Tyler One stream, you know, like, and it's an identity issue. And so let's see, let me make sure. I think we've actually touched on everything because we kind of parlayed that into the Twitch culture at large. Any parting thoughts on this topic?
I mean, not particularly. I think it's actually a pretty straight. The questions I think are intriguing, because I think taken solely as a case, like the Dr. Disrespect thing is not all that surprising, and I think it's for us at least it's relatively straightforward in terms of what happened and how we think he should have reacted, how Twitch should react. But I think what it says, as we've been saying, what it says about Twitch at large, and the outward facing mask of Twitch at large, I think is a problem going forward, especially.
LaBelle says, agreed. By not monitoring the behaviors of the toxic partnered streamers, they're encouraging the community to be closed-minded and toxic. And then he offers this solution. He says, if you remove their partnership and then force them to wait a year before applying for partnership again, and at that point, Twitch then needs to reevaluate their behavior and their channel and what they're doing.
Like a probationary period.
Yeah, I'm all about
that.
Like,
yeah.
Because I think that there are going to be more and more people like you and I who grow frustrated by what we've seen with Twitch and might move on to other places, which is the fear that Twitch has, right? That, oh man, if we ban Dr. Disrespect or hurt his wallets too much, he's just going to move over to Mixer or to DLive or, you know, one of these Facebook Gaming, one of these other platforms where people are going to follow, and we'd rather pissed off people give their money here than, you know, than somewhere else. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to a topic that isn't much different. Cody, what do you got for us this week?
There's a surprising amount of overlap between our topics this week, and it probably says a lot about the industry that this is kind of the topic du jour. I want to talk about Mordhau, the medieval kind of fighter beat 'em up game that's kind of taken a certain section of the gaming population by storm. And specifically, I want to talk about a PC Gamer article that came out about the toxicity in the community and the developers. I guess a generous way of saying it would be mishandling of the situation.
Maybe neglect.
Yeah, we might even say neglect. I think we're talking a lot about neglect in terms of responses from people this week, in terms of corporations. But I think, so Mordhau kind of it was built off of Chivalry, which is a pretty big medieval fighting game. And I think to say that the community on Mordhau is toxic is possibly underselling it. It's kind of, I mean, it's everything we've come to expect from kind of the worst corners of the internet: racism, sexism, homophobia. It's as the PC game article written by Samuel Horty kind of reports. There's just like toxicity is just sort of overflowing both in the in-game chat and the forums in the community. There's a massively popular forum that uses a racial epithet as kind of a way, as a label for players in the game and as a way to encourage players to post their character builds, and that forum is incredibly popular. And I don't think we're not going to have diverging opinions on
No,
or much of a discussion to be had on the community itself, because I think it's incredibly reprehensible. And so I don't really want to talk about the community too much, because I honestly don't really want to pay them the airtime. But I do want to talk about the developer, Triturnion's handling of the situation and sort of response to this behavior. There are certainly a lot of players, and very vocal players, that are participating in the toxicity, who are voicing these toxic views and this absolute hate speech. And then there are also players and people like Samuel Horty who like the game and enjoy the game and are incredibly disturbed by the hate behavior and Triturnion's absolute inadequate or totally lacking response to the behavior. I mean, some of the examples that Horty kind of cites in the article are, they actually sort of endorse the forum I mentioned, saying like something along the lines of, if it's taken out of context, it seems absolutely reprehensible, but within the context of the game, it's perfectly all right, and people are using it to kind of show their character builds and show their love for the game, which even taken in context,
that adjacent to these terms, then
exactly, even taken in the context of the game, it's still reprehensible. There's no direct reporting system in the game for this kind of behavior. You have to like go into the Triturnion's Discord and report it that way to one of the developers. There's a poorly implemented kick system that is not really even noticeable amidst all the chaos of the battles. There's kind of a subpar moderation system. And I do want to note that I think this is relevant for part of the discussion we're going to have. Triturnion is an 11-person team. It's a team that obviously did not expect to have their game become as popular as it has become. I think the PC Gamer cited it sold 1 million copies on Steam, and it's only growing. I have a lot of friends who play the game and seem to enjoy it a lot. I think where a lot of the controversy came up, and I promise we'll get into the discussion soon, is not only their refusal to respond to the toxicity, but to many people what it seems like is kowtowing to that segment of their player base. Specifically, there was mention in the original article, the original interview, of the team considering putting in female characters and characters of color of different ethnicities, Middle Eastern, Black. That's something the team is wanting to implement moving forward, because currently you can only play as a white male by default. And there was mention in the article of this point, and one of the developers responded to this, stating that the team has been talking internally about implementing a filter system, in which case you can filter out seeing women and characters of color if you don't want to see that
on any intelligible planet, right? Any intelligible planet, they just said, we're thinking about implementing a filter to where you won't see these fucking words popping up in the in-game chat.
Exactly.
But this is the direction they took it. What planet are we on?
We're on Planet Gaming.
I want off.
I do too. Many days out of the week. And so I just, before we kind of dive into the talking about this, I do just want to quickly cite a quote from one of the developers, and I'm gonna butcher his name, Mike Desrosiers. I assume that's it. He says, quote, "That goes back to a similar situation as the chat filters. Whatever stance we take officially, some group of people are going to be upset with us," referencing the implementation of women and characters of color. And so ideally we'd put the power in the player's hands and give them the option to enable and disable different things, end quote. Yeah. How much, so let's talk about this response first of all. Let's talk about, because I think there have been several updates to this story, and we can totally talk about kind of the absolute clusterfuck of a PR situation this has been for them. But what was your original response to this? I think I think we are of like minds about this feature and sort of their response to their community. But what do you think writ large about their response to the kind of the toxicity brewing in their community?
Where do you even begin, man?
I know.
This is one of my big things is like, this is what almost any online gaming community would look like without moderation filters and, you know, some of the basic tools that are at people's disposal to have. And so I think my first big hang up is that they are not having to invent something that doesn't already exist in order to deal with these situations. Like the things that are happening in the Mordhau community are not different from things that have happened in other communities in the past, and are not different from things that are constantly possibly trying to brew in communities around the internet, not just in gaming, but in other spaces as well, that very simple moderation tools could easily stamp down, right? And I actually talked pretty passionately about this last night on the PvA Nightly Rundown, and we had a guy come by the chat, and he was like, well, what can you expect these developers to do? Like, they're not going to be able to end racism with, you know, whatever features that they add in. And I'm like, look, we got to get out of this childish mindset that just because we can't solve the whole doesn't mean we shouldn't start to solve parts. And the fact that we don't see too many communities that look this blatantly like this means that there is something that exists that can help to solve this problem to some extent, right?
There are certain, and we've seen companies actually deal with this really well. Like, I think it might be cited in the PC Gamer article, but Ubisoft has cracked down real hard when it comes to the Siege community. They have, granted, they have the bandwidth and the resources to kind of deal with this stuff a lot more in depth than a lot of companies do, but they have really, I would say, really intense tools to moderate even stuff popping up on voice chat and in-game chat. They have actual like manual moderators dealing with this stuff. We see companies who actually do it. There's a reason that Siege is, in terms of the community, had such a turnaround. Like, they've taken measures to ensure that this stuff, at least for the most part, doesn't pop up.
One of the many things that blows my mind about this story is the fact that this game doesn't have voice chat. We're talking about text chat with chat logs, right? And like, which seems to be the very easiest thing to be able to manually moderate. That, oh, somebody reported this person for saying some sort of, you know, awful, misogynistic, racist, homophobic term in the chat. Let me pull that up. Oh, yep, that's a word, banned. Like, how hard is it to do that? And I understand that there's like bandwidth issues for a small team, but I think, like, are they reaching out to Ubisoft? Are they reaching out to Blizzard? Are they reaching out to EA? Are they reaching out to Activision? All these different companies who have had to deal with these, I guarantee you that at least one of those companies would be willing to reach back across the aisle and say, we're at least going to help you with some of the automated tools that we may use to help with moderation and things like that. Like,
and even before that, I would say there are plenty of communities that also have, and you can argue the legitimacy and the effectiveness of this, but there are communities that do have community moderators that help on even a part-time basis. granted, we can see what a segment of this community is, but I think there are clearly, even pointed out in the PC Gamer article, there are clearly members of the community who are really disturbed by this stuff, and I'm sure would pitch in to help out moderating as much as they can.
Yeah.
There's obviously a vetting process involved in that, but that also that not only takes a lot of the weight off your own shoulders, it creates a good relationship within the community at large. I think there's so many things that they could do.
Yeah, and the guy that came by last night, who was awesome in helping to give me context around how the game works, to an extent, he was like, "Look, I'm a part of this community, and this is abhorrent to me. You know, like, I look at this and I don't want this to be what defines the game. Like, and I feel like that guy would have been one of those guys that would step up if given the opportunity to have a community role within it. But like, I just think, you can't start to talk about the size and the bandwidth of the team when it doesn't seem like even the first step in trying to alleviate these problems is happening. And when you have a direct quote from somebody on the team that says, like, we just want to leave the power to the players because we know if we take a stance one way or another, we're going to piss somebody off. And it's like, look, do you want to, and look, this is what that quote says. It's not what it sounds like. This is what it says. It's saying, we understand that a large majority of the community that makes up this game falls into the category of people who interact on these forums and participate in this toxicity and identify with that portion of us. And if we make a stance against that, we're going to lose a sizable audience that we have generated with this game. That's what he's saying. Because if you're just trying to look objectively and say, there's a bunch of racist, homophobic, misogynistic individuals over here, and then there's some normal people that want just like a casual gaming experience that's fun to get into without having to deal with all this shit being said in the chat, which one do we want to piss off? I feel like the decision's probably pretty easy, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't know, man. Like, I don't give any benefit of the doubt to the fact that they're a small team when it's just evident from the responses that we've seen so far that they don't want to take a stance because it's going to have a negative impact on their bottom line and the success that they found.
Exactly, and I'm so glad you brought up that point, because I think there are certainly I think there is some legitimacy to the fact that it is a small team, blah, blah. I mean, they have limited bandwidth, whatever. But I think clearly from the quote you mentioned, the quote that I included in our run-up to this, and many other quotes within the article, they are not interested in really dealing with this problem at all, because I think you're right, it will obviously affect their bottom line. It'll impact their community in unimaginable ways. I think probably to the better if you kind of exercise this portion of your community, but it sort of it disturbs me, because I think, and we're seeing this more and more, we saw this, I think this was the kind of running through line, kind of subtly nagging at the back of a lot of developers who were on stage at E3. I think developers are afraid of the communities they serve to some extent.
That's why we didn't see gameplay of hardly anything.
Exactly. I think it speaks to a larger issue in the industry that very few developers are willing to take a stance because they think it'll alienate a segment of the gaming population, even if that population is toxic as hell and the minority. They're a loud minority, and I think in this case maybe not even a minority at all. I just think there's such a twisted relationship that's been established between the gaming community at large and the people who are actually delivering these experiences, and this speaks to that in the worst way imaginable.
Yeah, the fact that a proposed solution, regardless of whether they've said it was on the table or not, which is what the updates, like, nobody just makes up, like, we're going to put a race and gender filter into our game, you know? Like, the fact that was a solution before wanting to piss people off, like, dude, it just feels like this whole story just feels like a whole different fucking planet. But you're absolutely right. Like, and it's funny, man, like, you know who probably had the best, who dealt with this the best, was DICE and EA with Battlefield 5 when they when they were releasing trailers for it, and then there's women soldiers, and people are like, oh, that's not historically accurate, which was another just insane asinine angle to this story. That
It's a constant thing.
They were trying to legitimize people's frustration and anger because they were like, well, they're just concerned about the historical accuracy of Mordhau. This and if you've seen the gameplay of Mordhau, it's not like the pinnacle of realism, right?
No.
And so, but EA coming out and just being like, hey, guess what? There's this really great option. If you guys don't like the female characters in our game, don't buy the shit. All right. EA stomped it out as quickly as it came up, and I don't give EA credit for a lot of things. I give them a lot of credit for the way that they went about responding to that criticism, and it showed that they were not afraid of this vocal. I don't even know if it's a vocal. I know it's a vocal minority, but I'm sure it's a sizable chunk.
It definitely is,
of paying customers in these audiences, and I understand why. I am not justifying. I understand why a team of 11 people who has just caught a wave of success they never imagined having would not want to cut the snake's head off. That's lining their pockets right now. But I think at some point you have to stand up and say, well, what is morally correct within the situation for us to do, and what are we willing to live with ourselves letting gestate in the thing that we have created? Because I doubt that they went into this thinking, man, we're really excited about creating this game that's just going to be a hotbed for assholes to play.
Yeah, and I think if the game continues to grow as it has, I think it only creates a ticking time bomb for your community down the line. If the core of your community is rotten, if the heart of it is rotten, that foundation's not going to stand up over time. It's going to create fissures within the community. You're going to have constant infighting. The chat is going to be an absolute mess, which it already is. I just think, it's extremely I think it's morally and ethically